rise and do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could remain standing, I would like to have a moment of silence for Rita Gallinelli. She was a longtime employee of the town. She started in February of 1988 as the treasurer tax collector. Then she became the town clerk in 1993. Got elected to town clerk in 94, and she served until 2007. She was a dedicated employee to the town, and we are going to miss her. Thank you. Okay, first on the docket is public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to something that is not on the agenda? Please come forward, state your name.
Good evening. My name is George Avila. I live on Schoolhouse Road, 167 Schoolhouse Road.
Okay.
And I'd like to talk about the construction that is taking place there. I understand that it's outside of the town's control, but I just want to make the town council aware of some of the issues with it, and hopefully they can get the appropriate people involved, maybe our state rep or something like that, because it's a total fiasco. So start off with the bridge that they just reopened. The bridge does not meet DOT's minimum width for their lanes. Their minimum width is 10 feet, and the bridge is at some points less than 9 feet wide. So they're talking about maybe restriping it. It's not going to make a difference. The bridge is too narrow. The bridge that was there before was straight, and when you came to the end, you took a turn. And so they decided to put a new bridge because of the water elevation. And so they solved the problem with the water, but they created so many other problems. Because the lanes are so narrow and it curves, there's no way that a truck can go over it without going over the double yellow line. I was out there Sunday for 10 minutes, and there were 28 cars that went over the bridge. Only 9 were able to stay in the lane. All the other ones ended up having to go over the single lane or double lane at some point. Totally out of, it doesn't make any sense. By making the road turn, also, if you're going east towards Swansea, instead of fixing it, making it better and having the road go left, they had the road go right, which is not the direction in which the road is supposed to go. It's supposed to continue on left. Instead, if you go onto the bridge, they purposely made the bridge turn to the right, which makes absolutely no sense. So again, you're not going to be able to have 2 school buses go over that bridge at the same time. I was fortunate I didn't see 2 cars going over at the same time, but you can't have 2 trucks because you got a niche on either side, and it's ridiculous. There's a utility pole that was there that I figured they would move it because it would give it more width. No, they stay within the boundaries. So again, making it even more of a hazard than it was before. Now that it's winter, you're going to have snow pile up on the sides. It's going to make it even worse. So it's totally ridiculous. They didn't even meet their own specifications. My suggestion, again, I'm not a contractor, but plain common sense would be to move that telephone pole to the opposite side, move over the sides of the road so it actually goes with traffic. And there's no way that those guardrails can remain in place because there's no way it's going to be wide enough. My recommend, again, but why don't they just take the concrete that's there for the bridge and bring it up? Just like if you go over Maine to Barrington, it's cement. Bring it out there, put it cement, remove the guardrails. You still have people that are going to keep them from going in the water, but at least you're going to gain probably another foot or so, maybe a little bit more, and repave it. So there's some simple solutions, but what I fear is they're going to try to put lipstick on a pig, and they're not going to remedy anything. They're going to, again, put a stop sign. Well, there was no stop sign there before. There was no need for it. So why are you going to impede traffic? Just do it right. Widen it up, move the pole, and make things better. And one last thing, so the other thing is I live down further on 167. My neighbor at 171, his pipe, I told the OT, his pipe is collapsed. It needs to be taken out, new pipe put in. Instead, the water goes into his driveway, butts his wall, goes in 10 feet, goes along underneath, percolates underneath, and my driveway is collapsed because the water is going underneath it, comes down. And it's really nice if you want to come out on a rainy day, you can actually see the water bubbling out of my front yard because that's how much water is going underneath that area. So again, my hope is that we don't allow them to just try to put a Band-Aid on this, that they really fix it right. The previous bridge was there for a very long time. This one's going to be there for a very long time. My understanding is somebody already hit the guardrail, and I don't think it's going to be the last. So thank you for your time.
Is the water runoff issue, is that related to the bridge, or is that?
No.
separate?
Well, I'm not sure about any water runoff. The water is running underneath the bridge, fine.
She means the one going into
Oh,
your driveway.
Yes, because the state is supposed to maintain that, and there's a ditch there. So the ditch, the water's supposed to continue underneath the driveway, but my neighbor's driveway, and they can't afford to put a pipe. It's supposed to be the state's responsibility. It's a cast iron about this big.
Yeah.
It's plugged up.
I think what she was asking you, was that exasperated by the bridge construction, or is it?
Well,
separated?
so much soil went into that whole thing. And in fact, some areas where they paved with the plow trucks, when the plow trucks are state, because it's a state road, the plow trucks are going to go, they're going to collapse that road because they didn't, the roadway, there's not enough dirt before the gully. So it's like road, maybe a foot of dirt and then gully. So that'll collapse at some point. But again, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We did discuss this at the department head meeting, and the DPW director and the town manager and myself, we are not happy at all at what's going on there. So we are in communication with the state. We are going to get our state reps involved at the point if we have to. But yeah, it can't stay like that. That's very bad design.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just as unhappy as you are.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, I do want to thank everybody for the Christmas cards that we got in our packets and we got today. I did note that we did not get one from the harbor master yet. I imagine that one's in the mail. Okay. That being said, next on the agenda. Next on the agenda is the swearing in, and for that, we have the Judge Rago here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And I want to congratulate John, Kerry, and Joseph on getting elected. To me, there's no bigger honor in having the community pick you to serve on a town council. So that's a huge honor. It's my privilege to swear you in, and I congratulate you all.
Thank you.
So I would ask John, Kerry, and Joseph to please rise. And please raise your right hand. You, John W. Hanley, Kerry M. Cronin, and Joseph A. DePasquale solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution and obey the laws of the United States of America and the state of Rhode Island, and that you will in all respects observe the provisions of the charter and ordinance of the town of Warren and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the town council for which you have been elected until another be engaged in your place or until you legally discharge therefrom. So help you God.
I do.
I did.
I do.
Congratulations. And I congratulate you once again. I don't think there's a bigger honor than being elected by the community to serve. And I congratulate you all.
Thank you, Judge.
Thanks, Judge. Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, John.
Congratulations.
Okay, next we have the election. You good? We have the election of town council officers. First is the town council president. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate John Hanley for the office of Town Council President.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other nominations? Do we have a vote? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have town council vice president. Do we have any nominations?
Steve, you want to be vice president again?
Yes.
Nominate Steve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All set for another year. Next, we are on appointments. This is on page 6 and 7. And there's quite a few of them. It is two that I think we should pull because we have to figure for the planning board, we have to figure out because of the charter change, we're going now to 7 and 2. So that would be the planning board. We'd pull that out for separate discussion. And the other one was that might have been the only one that we needed to pull. Yeah, oh no, the Bristol Warren Regional Joint Finance Committee, because we need to figure that out as well. Now, all the other appointments, do we need to do these one at a time or can we just appoint by everything on the agenda?
I would recommend doing it each one.
Okay. So first, we have the Associate Housing Court Judge. We have Alden C. Harrington. Is there a motion to reappoint Mr. Harrington?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have the Associate Municipal Court Judge. This is a 1-year term as well. And we have Brett V. Bobian for the Associate Municipal Court Judge. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. We're going to skip down to the building official, the alternate 1-year term. I actually probably should recuse myself on this one.
Probably.
Yep. So I'm going to recuse myself on this one.
And because it's your brother.
Yes, yeah. So do we have a motion on the alternate building official, the 1-year term? Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. You're back.
Okay, next we have the Conservation Commission. It's a 3-year term. There are 7 members, but we only currently have 4 on it. We have Lester Lombardi, we have Jean Leffers, we have Wendy Brennan, and we have Keith Morton. Is there a motion to reappoint?
Motion to reappoint all of them.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have the Economic Development Board. It's a 3-year term. There are 10 members, but we're only reappointing 2 that are open at this time. We still have a vacancy there. So we have Louis Michael Peterman and Albert Federico. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have the electrical inspector. It's Nicholas T. Massad. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have the alternate electrical inspector. It's Frederick Souza. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have the Harbor Management Commission. We have 1 reappointment and it's William J. Kemp. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have the Holiday Festival. We have 1 to reappoint. It's Elwood Donnelly. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
President?
Yes.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but Mr. Donnelly did send along a statement. I don't know if it went to you or not, but he had asked if it could be read as to why he would like to accept this reappointment. I have it here.
Yes, if you would,
Which I'm happy to read.
if you would read it for us, that would be great.
That he had this statement read publicly in his words, and I quote, "I am honored to accept the position of chair for the 2023 Warren Holiday Festival. The support I received this year from the Department of Public Works, the Police Department, Fire Department, Town Hall clerks and finance officers, the Town Council, our representatives, sponsors, and volunteers, as well as the comments and accolades from attendees, have confirmed my commitment to ensure that the festival continues to be inclusive, exciting, fun, and an event that helps define the town of Warren at its best. Thank you for the privilege of representing Warren in this way, Elwood Donnelly.
Thank you. Did we take a vote on that one yet?
We did.
Okay, we
Yes.
did or we didn't? Next one is the Juvenile Hearing Board. We have 3 members to reappoint. We have Zachary Lyons, Jeffrey Keegan, and Kenneth McPhillips. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next, Library Trustee, we have 2 reappointments. We have Carol A. Gafford and John S. Cheney. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
So moved.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Municipal Court Judge, we have John Rago. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
I'll make the motion to appoint.
Motion in a second, all in favor? Aye. Plumbing Mechanical Inspector, Peter J. Withers. Do we have a motion to reappoint?
So moved.
Motion in a second, all in favor? Aye. We have the alternate Plumbing Mechanical Inspector, Gordon Miggs. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion in a second, all in favor? Aye. Recreation Board, 1 reappointment, Donna M. Razor. Do we have a motion? Motion
Second.
and a second, all in favor? Aye. Tree Commission, we have 3 reappointments, Charles Staton Jr., Kathleen Panoni, and Michelle Murray. Do we have a motion to? Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
The Town Sergeant is vacant. They will not be seeking reappointment, so we're going to have to advertise that. We have the Voluntary Historic District Committee. We have 1 reappointment, John Messinger.
So moved.
Second.
Motion in a second. Warren Housing Authority is next. We have Jeannie Carter.
Vote on the voluntary.
Oh,
Oh, motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Warren Housing Authority, Jean Carter. Motion
second.
in a second. All in favor? Aye. We have the Zoning Board. We have 3 reappointments, Jason M. Nystrom, Michael Anthony Alves, and David J. Francis.
So moved.
Motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so let's go back to the Planning Board. Now, that what gets tricky about this is due to the charter change, we're going to 7 and 2 alternates now. We have 1 vacant position and 2 that are up for reappointment. One of the people up for reappointment did send us a letter and said he would be willing to accept the alternate position. So we have the person that did say they would be willing to accept the alternate position is Mr. Patterson. So we can, so there would be, I just lost my page. Planning Board. So we have Frederick 3 Massey and James H. Patterson. Only one can be a full-time member. The other one would have to be an alternate. Do we have a motion on which way we want to go?
I'd motion to reappoint Frederick Massey as chair. To the-
Well, it's just a position.
Chair.
Yeah, it's,
We can just give him full-time. We
yeah,
can't
it's
make
just
him a
his,
chair.
it's just his position. Yep.
Okay.
Make him a member of the board.
Okay, we have a motion for Mr. Massey to be a full member.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion for Mr. Patterson to be an alternate?
So moved.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for James Patterson to be an alternate to the planning board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we have the JFC. We have 3 positions. I believe I have to be one of them.
You do. By the
Okay,
charter.
yeah, by the charter. So I have to be one. So we have 2 other positions open.
And they don't have to be elected officials.
Correct. Correct. So what's the flavor of the board? We have 2 positions open.
So I'll nominate Kerry Cronin to fill one of the positions.
I'll motion that.
Second, we have a motion and a second for Kerry to be on the Joint Finance Committee. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have one more position open.
I'll also motion Kate Michaud, our town manager, fill the other position.
We have a motion and a second for Kate Michaud to round out the three. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That's done.
Good luck.
Do you want to do it?
Oh, yeah, we probably should have.
And Mr. President, if I may,
Absolutely.
I just wanted to make a public thanks to Tamara Kaplan, who
Yes.
served on the JFC.
And could we send her a nice little thank you letter?
Yeah,
Yes.
Thank you.
She did it. She did a great job.
Yep.
she did.
Yep.
Can we also send a letter of thanks for Bruce Hutchison's service?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Did you get that? Bruce
Council
Hutchinson?
Sergeant.
Okay, next we have interviews. We have the Economic Development Board. We have one alternate position available. However, we do not have any applicants. So anybody out there listening? We are going to come across a couple of boards that we do not have applicants. We need some help. If you have any time, expertise, or you just want to get involved and make Warren a better place, please put your name in for one of these open positions. Next, we have the Planning Board. We have one alternate position open. We have one application. It is Donald Mead. Is Mr. Mead here? Please come forward. Why don't you give us a
Good evening.
Good
little bit of
evening. How are
history
you?
and
Good, yourself?
a little bit of history and why you're interested in being on the planning board, please.
My wife and I live here now 22 years in Warren. We've seen a lot of improvement over that period of time. I just recently retired and have time to be involved in future improvement of the town, of our town. So I thought I'd step forward and make myself available.
Okay, any questions from the board?
I do.
We'll go start at the end and come this way. Ms. Cronin?
Mr. Mead,
Yes,
first
ma'am.
of all, thank you so much for applying for a position of service to the town of Warren. I think you have a really impressive history of work experience
Oh, thank you.
here. I personally think it is more appropriate and related to serving on the Economic Development Board. I personally am going to hold, right at this time, I would not support your appointment to the planning board for the reason that I believe our planning board right now needs a member who has architectural experience, design experience, experience in the world of aesthetics and possibly some preservation experience. And I think that's really sorely missing from our planning board right now. And I think we need to be a little bit more particular about matching up our volunteers to the appropriate boards and commissions. And
Understood.
with your work experience, I think you would be really well suited to our Economic Development Board. It would be a good entry way for you to see how our boards and commissions work. So
Sure, if you feel that, it'd be more appropriate for me to be on the economic board, then sure.
I do.
I would certainly, look forward to looking at that possibility.
And I believe if the council was in agreement, we would be able to accept you refocusing yourself into that position if you were interested in doing so.
That's for the solicitor. Would we, if the council feels that way, would we be able to, there is an opening on the Economic Development Board. Would we?
Something of this nature certainly can amend on the floor. the
Okay.
agenda.
Great, okay. Any other questions, comments?
Well, I echo Councilwoman Cronin's idea on this, that based on your resume, that you'd be an excellent candidate for the Economic Development Board. So I would support that nomination.
Now, is there any description of the responsibilities of the position in the economic board?
Absolutely. We can supply those to you, not at the moment, but certainly.
Yep. And
direct you.
if that's the way the council wants to go, if you're not comfortable, we could always wait till next month, let you read up and see what that board does. And make sure you're interested in it.
Right, right.
We certainly don't want to stick you on a board you don't have any interest in, so.
Or perhaps our manager could give just a brief description. I think the name sort of somewhat summarizes the economic development of the town. The board is in sort of it's being sort of repopulated right now and refocused and with some new goals and ideas. So I think it's a great time to come onto it, but I would defer to Manager Michaud to elaborate.
Yeah, I think that was a good description. I mean, it's a diverse board. There's business owners, there's members of the community. They're looking at, the economic strengths and weaknesses of the community and trying to come up with ideas for how to best support the economic development of the town. From a diverse standpoint, looking at, all the different sectors of the economy. But there is a kind of a mission statement document that we can provide to you that has a little bit more detail on the goals that they're working towards.
I would just like to make sure that I have the, I guess, the experience and maybe the skills to be beneficial to that committee.
Absolutely.
agree.
I immediately thought of it when I
Okay.
read your resume. I thought, here's a person who could be
I
of
would
great
seriously
value.
consider that.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
If the council is not going to look at your request to be on the planning board, my question is very specific to you serving on the planning board. So my question is really going to be moot if you're going to the Economic Development Board.
Always remember, he can do both. Okay, you can serve on more than one board.
How's what,
No, just, I'll wait my turn, but
No.
well, I mean,
Yeah, but I don't know if the planning board's one of them. I think the planning and the zoning board may be.
you can't serve on both of those, but you can serve on planning and economic development.
then I'll ask you my question.
Okay.
When you had the lawsuit against the town, I'm curious to see if that experience prompted you to serve on the board. And if so, could you explain that? And do you think that being involved in a lawsuit with the town would affect your position in any way?
No,
Ability to serve?
well, that experience is totally separate, has no influence at all on my outlook on the town. I, again, would try to be as involved and neutral without even thinking about that. I mean, that really didn't come to mind at all about the lawsuit. That was a separate matter altogether.
But from my position, I wanted to give you the credit, actually, to have that experience. And potentially when dealing with situations that could involve some potential legalities or litigation, you may be one of the few people on that board that would see it from literally a position where you dealt with the town. Not necessarily adversarially, but on an issue that was literally in the middle of your house.
Yes.
And
It was literally.
you decided to stay here, and that says a lot. And I didn't want you to in any way be compromised down the road if you found yourself in a position that you became unhappy with because of that experience. And I thought it would be good to ask you up front.
No, absolutely. I don't feel that I would be compromised at all about that experience. And I certainly could use that experience to evaluate situations that may arise in the future, involving with the town and other situations similar to what I experienced.
All right. Well, good to hear. Thank you.
Do you want to go?
Calinda?
Yeah. Well, I read your resume. Thank you for your years of service. I'm not sure if I ate in any of your chow halls across my tenure, but if I did, I don't have any complaints. I
How
was
long
always
did you serve?
81, 87, and then 2009 back to you. Yeah, it's a long story. Yeah. But what did you retire at?
Sergeant First Class.
So E7.
E7,
So C7. So you went through all sorts of BNOC training and
yes.
yeah, okay. Yep. So you have the ability to learn on the run. I mean, I hear what Councilman Cronin is saying, and I agree with it, but I also have to say that I spent 9 years on zoning and I didn't know anything about zoning. And so I could learn as I go. planning does get a little complicated. But I commend you for at least applying for the position because we are trying to fill the position. So thank you and thank you for your years of service.
Okay, I don't really have any questions. Everybody covered it all. So what's the pleasure of the council?
I would have motion to appoint Mr. Mead to the Economic Development Board.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Mead, I'm not sure if he wants to accept it at this time because he wanted to read the
Right.
what's going on. So could we appoint him and then if he doesn't want it, we just re-advertise and reappoint next month? Or would we be better off waiting until he has a chance to look it over and see if he has any interest in it?
I think it'd be cleaner maybe just to wait,
Okay,
see whether or not he wants.
I,
it.
Withdraw my motion.
okay.
I've just been advised that there is a meeting on January 4th. The clerk told us that there's an economic development meeting on the tentative on the
I
4th.
can attend. Yeah, sure.
You
That would be good introduction.
Okay,
With the planning board, I feel with the experience that I have, well, in the military, working with the Directorate of Logistics and so on, that I would be better suited for that. But as you mentioned, I'm pretty easily to learn on a run. So I think I would be able to pick up the knowledge that I need to on the economic board as well.
So I guess the motion would be to continue, actually, both openings till next month and re-advertise both openings.
I would second that, or I would make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good luck. Thank you for your
Okay,
interest.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next we have tax.
Wait, he's coming back next month. Let him know. He
Yeah.
wants to serve. He's coming back.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Mead, if you are interested in the Economic Development Board, just let the clerk know and we'll make sure you're on the docket for next month. All right, thank you. Okay, next we have the Tax Board of Assessment Review. We have one position available, but we have no applicants. Next, we have the Warren Arts and Cultural Commission. We have two positions available. We have first is Chris Lynn Matos. Ms. Matos, are you here? Please come forward.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Just give us a brief history and your interest in the Cultural Commission.
Well, presently, I'm working as the director of the library,
Okay.
and I was approached by the board to be part of it, to develop more of the cultural part, since we felt it would be beneficial for both the library and the commission. So, and I agreed.
Okay, any questions from the council?
Sure. Thank you for being willing to apply. And having read your resume here, it does seem a good fit. I think that the cultural portion of the Warren Arts and Cultural Commission could use a little boost. There's a lot of strengths on the board right now. It's been a very productive board, but I think that your assets and experience would be really welcome. The question has always been, if you have the time to serve. We have seen a little bit of an issue among some of the boards and commissions of absences. And I know this is a different, particularly difficult time of the year, but it would fit into your schedule, the meeting times.
Absolutely.
And you
So,
would be able to serve on subcommittees or take on outside projects.
yes, absolutely. I'm fully staffed right now at the library, so.
Great.
Do you have an idea of something you would like to see the board take on?
Well, right now for the museum, we're developing a monthly night at the museum, so we're hoping we can kind of collaborate on that, so. And if you didn't know, there's a little museum in the library. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
I have no
Do we have a motion?
motion to approve. And I'll second.
We have a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jordan Delphine Scriven. Is Jordan here? Please come forward. just give us a little history and your interest in the commission.
Good evening. My name is Jordan Scriven. I'm 16 years old and a junior in the Performing and Visual Arts High School in Pawtucket. It's called Jacqueline M. Walsh. I am really interested in the Warren Arts Cultural Commission, mainly because I want to bring younger voices into the Warren Committee. I think that's very important. And I also want to encourage diversity, as that's people of color, LGBTQ plus IA community, and young people. I also am very interested in bringing more art and culture to Warren. I was part of the recent mural on Genito Field. And I recently helped with the commission to put the artwork in the Child Street, the glass casing. I thought that was really interesting and really fun and a great idea. So I helped out with that. But overall, I really want to be a part of Warren is growing with art in general. I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you. First question is going to be for the
Already up.
solicitor. Is there an age requirement?
Negative.
Negative, okay. And I'm very familiar with the school you go to. I'm the building official in Pawtucket, so I have to inspect that at least once a year. So, yeah, and that's a great school.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second, great job on the mural too, by the way.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
But I just want
Sure.
to ask, you've been pretty clear in why you want to do this. Do you have any sort of pie in the sky ideas for a project for the Arts and Cultural Commission?
Not at the moment. I'm actually just, I went to one of their meetings once, and I was just being able to sit in on their decisions regarding other murals was, even though I didn't say anything, I thought it was really interesting and fun. So I'm just like to be a part of it. And if I can help at any time, that'd be great.
I have a pie in the sky idea.
I didn't ask you.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see the mural on the sewer plant. I mean, I've been saying that for years.
All right, so we have a motion and a
Yeah.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, great.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Good luck. Congrats.
Okay, we are at the minutes now. We have the November 27 executive session minutes.
Motion to approve the executive session minutes as they are before us.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Please pass them down. Okay,
About the
next
secret.
we have the November 7th regular meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next, we have the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull off the consent agenda? Actually, there's only one
There's
on
only
the
one thing,
consent
yeah.
agenda. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have ordinance 01. This is the short term. Yes, this is for the short term rental that we had discussed. We were provided with a draft tonight. We had a bunch of discussion about this the last time we heard it. I think the two biggest sticking points were the parking and then whether or not there was going to be a requirement for a Warren resident, a Warren, someone that lived, is it a Warren resident, owner occupied? That was the two big discussions going on there. So what do we, I know we've been kicking this around. There's not a whole lot of changes except for those two that we were looking at. We didn't really button that down. So I think the first problem, I think the first thing we should address is how do we feel about owner occupant or not owner occupant, or you must live there for 6 months, or you know, you can only, you have to live in Warren. How do we want to go about that?
Well,
Go ahead.
okay, I'll be very brief.
Yeah. sure.
I think the council president has made his opinions very clear about the concern about having someone outside, either a business, a corporation, whatever they're going to identify, in buying up a bunch of these houses and turning them into pseudo hotels. We've had this conversation. So, and I agree with that. So maybe a better course of action would be restricting the number of units that you're going to have in a short-term rental, putting a cap on how many you can actually own that are going to be short-term rental. I think that would probably be a pretty good course of action where we could control and have good oversight on exactly how many somebody could purchase. I was having a conversation with somebody in the New Hampshire area. And he had mentioned that this fellow that he rents from, the guy has 90 of them. I think that would probably be in our best interest to prevent something like that happening in the town of Warren. So I'll throw that out there, and I turn
Yeah,
to you
they-
now, Brad.
The only difficulty I see about that is you could start an LLC for each building.
So,
And then-
I
and
thought
then-
you couldn't do it if you were an LLC.
Well, that's if we go owner occupied.
no, but my response for the limited liability corporation is you would be limited in how many LLCs that you could be a participant in. There would be no silent ownership. You would have to disclose, like when I do my LLC filings, I have to disclose who the people are that are participating in my LLC.
Would, for the solicitors, would that be legally feasible to put into the ordinance, and B, would it be enforceable?
So I'm comfortable to say that the town as a whole can put a cap overall. I do have a little concern if you can cap a particular individual.
You can't keep a person from buying a property.
And then we get into the complex issues of LLCs and having different agents and presidents listed. So I would have to do some research, if that's something that the council is interested in, looking more into an individual cap versus a community cap.
Okay. Something we can look into that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to say that an individual or an LLC can only purchase so many buildings. I mean, we can't control a person wanting to buy something.
well, they'll be
But-
saying that we're gonna control what they're buying, just we're
But
gonna
we-
control on the short-term rental use. You can buy as many as you want. You can have 100, but if we cap, you can, if you have 100, you can only short-term rental 4, 3, whatever the number is. Then, perfect.
But is,
Or cap the number of units inside the
Well,
building.
that's,
yeah,
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's gets
The-
more towards what President Hanley was worried about is, you put it correctly, pseudo hotels. where
Yeah.
Someone comes in, they buy a property, they put 4 units in, and it becomes a small hotel rather than, what it's designed for is.
So the only problem I see with that is if you have a 3-family and we say you can do 2 out of the 3, okay. What's the 2-family? 1 out of the 2, so
So,
you get 50%, but the other guy gets 66 and the third.
well, right, but still,
Yeah.
the goal is to prevent sort of speculation in a sense,
sure.
right? Speculation and turning it into pseudo hotel. So
Okay.
we accomplish that by limiting the number per property in essence. Now, I think Carrie, you brought up a point we were discussing previously.
yeah.
That you might cap it at 50%
Yeah,
or 2
max.
units.
Max
Mhm.
2 units per building. And no more than 50% of the building can be short-term rental. So if it's a
Right.
3-unit building, you can't. Now I'm.
You would only be
Well,
able to
Matt-
do 2.
You would only be
2.
able to do 2.
Right.
And if it's no, if it's a 2-unit building, you could only do 1. You
Yeah,
could do
because
no
of the
more than
50%
50%.
Clause. Yep.
But there is the maximum 2 per building, so if you had a 3-unit, you could do 2, but but no more than 50% if it's a 2-unit building.
Okay.
Yep.
And the owner occupied part, I think, is a separate discussion. But I think that looking at the number of dwelling units in the town, if it's 5,500, I think was in here.
5,500, yeah.
And looking at a percentage, I think some communities, there's an article in the Projo today, perfectly timed for us all to see. Some communities are doing a percentage of dwelling units. They're all different ways of going at this.
So I didn't see the article. I've heard about it, but I didn't read it. So let's say we put it at 10%. Oh, just throwing that 10% number seems to be for affordable houses. So we just use the 10% number.
That's 550 units.
So just for sake of argument, it's 550 units that are allowed to do short-term rental. So the 551 person would have to wait for somebody to drop out.
Like a waiting list, like for Lawrence.
Is that where that percentage would go? Okay,
I'm not saying that I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, I was
think
just
that
curious
has
how-
Inherent problems built into it when you get to that point.
okay,
I mean,
and let's say
right now,
5%, 2%, yeah.
if we've got, I'm confused about, we've got 16 units are listed on the state's short-term rental registry. and there's 38 active rentals. Where's the other 22, or how does that work? I'm not sure how those numbers work.
So the rental unit owners are responsible for registering themselves on the state's list, and they're supposed to be registered by December 1st. So I'm guessing there's just some lag and that some of the existing units just haven't registered on the state site.
They're not being reported yet because we know that there are more than.
Right, I believe the air DNA number comes from what's being reported through the platforms. So I think there's just probably, the registration process isn't automatic with the state. It's done by the property owners. So I think there's probably just a lag in that process.
Okay.
I have a question, couple of questions. Are we sure that the 5,500 number is dwellings or just units in regards to buildings?
It's dwelling units.
It is that many.
It was right around there.
I wasn't sure, because a while ago it was 3,500. And I remember in the census, there was like 5,000 buildings. So
There's a lot of commercial buildings.
that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that number is accurate, because I don't see how we've added 2,000 dwelling units in town. Maybe I'm-
I didn't look back. I just looked at the current.
Just saying, we
numbers,
should
so.
look. Let's
Oh,
just
yeah.
double check.
Yeah, well, this is still the first reading, I believe.
I don't
so,
remember
yeah.
us having 5,500 residential units in town. I may be confused, but I thought the last census, or one of the census was 5,500 units, 3,500 dwellings.
Okay.
In other words, 5,500 buildings in town. And 3,500 of them were residential dwelling units.
As opposed to,
As
Commercial.
opposed to just,
Right.
yeah, so I may be mistaken, I just am.
Yeah, we
pointing it
can,
out.
this, like I said, this is first reading, so we can verify that.
I think that the owner occupancy is important in a few ways for controlling the nuisance that could potentially happen. If we can come up with something creative, that could be a controlling factor to make sure that people who are there on vacation are being respectful of the people who are living there. I'm up for that, but that's the variable I'm trying to figure out how to best control.
I can comment on that, I understand the owner occupied option is attractive to try and kind of keep controls and monitor, but I know people that own Airbnbs and they don't occupy the units, but they're very responsible, respectful, and there are no problems as far as I know. So I'm not sure that I agree with the owner occupied. I think the owner occupied, that your biggest, Mr. President, your biggest concern was about preventing the hotel aspect of it. And I think this would do it if we put some
Correct.
restrictions.
My whole thing for leaning towards the owner occupant is Airbnb was not designed to be for corporations to make money.
Right.
It was designed for homeowners to rent out a bedroom in their house. Now, by going the way it's going, it's circumventing, and this is part of because of what I do for a living. It's circumventing the building code. It's circumventing the fire code, because short-term rental in the building and fire code is called I'm drawing a blank. Transient residential.
Yeah.
Okay, and with transient residential, you're not familiar with the building. So that's why in hotels, they have exit signs, they have emergency lights, they have sprinklers. Because in the middle of the night, if you wake up and you're immersed in smoke, and this is the first night there, you don't know where the heck you're going. So by these corporations coming in there and buying 3 families and 4 families and turning them into short-term rentals, they're making hotels without the safety features that anybody else that opens a hotel has to do. And an Airbnb was never invented or started for corporations to circumvent the hotel rules. It was to help people that were maybe having trouble paying their rent or paying their taxes or paying their mortgage. And that's what the Airbnb was for. By these corporations coming in, they're totally blowing it out of proportion and circumventing laws that actual hotel owners have to do.
Sure.
So that's why I'm so vehemently opposed to not being owner occupied, because it's to benefit the owner of the property, not to benefit a corporation that just buys up the property, sucks up our long-term rentals, which we already have a problem with. We're already under, how many rentals we need. And It's just how they get around the code because of this. That's what gets me so
So
riled up.
understandably, and but I think but by presenting a restriction on the units, we can solve that problem. And as far as, ongoing problems with certain units, I mean, that's where, we have to put into place a structure that says, if there's a violation, then there's consequences to that. And I think Mr. Kalenda spoke to that last meeting that we discussed this, was, we could temporarily shut them down. I mean, that might be a second step as opposed to a fine on the first step, but I mean, we can take steps to rectify these situations. They don't have to go on and, with the neighbors being assailed unnecessarily. So I think we can put into place some steps that would ameliorate that.
I totally agree with you. I hate the idea of outside entities outside of the state, far away, buying our properties, turning them into, sort of hotel type operations and circumventing the safety issues. I don't think that's really a problem here right now. I think we do have to build an ordinance that will take that into consideration for the future. But I think we have a number of really great hosts here in town right now who live here in town, who are very committed to the community, who live in a dwelling and have either an alternate dwelling that they have some long-term rental, some short-term rental, some business space, some short-term rental. So I think they're model hosts and are very connected and engaged to the community. So I think it's unfair that we should be so onerous in our first stab at this, that we might be undermining the spirit of entrepreneurialism. Because that's, I don't know if the RISD guys who invented or came up with the idea of Airbnb ever imagined it would be where it is, but that's what these little crazy ideas become in this country. You have an idea and it turns into something you never could have dreamed of, and it makes people into, people and gives people opportunities they never could have dreamed of having. So I think finding a balance is really important, and we can't ignore the two major issues. One, our need for affordable housing. This is huge. I don't think that this is the place that we're going to solve that problem, but I think we can put some safety into some sensible language into an ordinance. But there's also the tourism and the economic development aspect of it, where the guests who are coming into town and staying at these units are spending an inordinate amount of money in our community and really stimulating our local economy. And they're coming back, and then some of them are buying properties and moving here. They're really contributing a lot to the community by coming here and enjoying our history, our architecture, our art, our culture, our food. So we need to find a balance that really works and not keep people from doing what they should be able to do, but also not allowing people to take advantage of us, which can happen.
But on the flip side, the increase in property value has outpaced the residential value and is now being looked at for its earning potential. So I just read something about up in Maine. It's just nobody can buy a house because all of a sudden this aspect of trying to find a cabin in Maine has just been completely replaced with there's 10,000 places to stay in Maine, and nobody in Maine can afford to buy a house anymore. And so I think that this would have been our timing isn't our fault. I think unfortunately we're trying to figure out how to solve a problem that's already in place. Question for the solicitor on that note. How does our ordinance retroactively work? Now, I can speak specifically for 136 Main Street. It's been derelict my whole life. Actually, no, when I was around 12, probably the owners died and all of that changed. On again, a flip side, a counter position here. the B and B has now brought that property back into decency. Even as trying to figure out how to make this balance, that's a perfect example of a house that never was functioning well.
In other words, I think he's asking if the existing B and Bs would be affected by the ordinance.
One part,
So unlike a zoning ordinance, which would create vested rights, this is a regulation that you are debating. Therefore, there'll be no vested rights associated with regulations.
So that means that
That means
that
that was-
5-unit Airbnb or whatever it is at 136 Water Street that exists right now, if we create an ordinance that limits to, or that limits to 2 per building or no more than 50%,
That's correct.
they'd have to remove those short-term rentals.
That's correct. That's a regulation built on the safety of this community. and other
Okay.
serious
Retroactive
concerns.
in a
Correct.
sense, for lack of a better word.
And
Yes,
that ex post facto won't come into play in this
it's correct.
because we're creating the regulation.
It's under regulation versus like
Yeah.
a zoning ordinance, which now if you say, you need 5 parking spots, that changes vested rights
Yeah.
versus regulation.
Did that answer your question, Joe?
it did, but then it's interesting to see because this house, I think, I'm not positive, but I think it's been restructured and rebuilt and has been now working in this format. It's gonna be interesting to see. I don't know what they have in them, but how did, 2 of them now become apartments with parking and, a dumpster because it's 4 units and the hard wire because it's, it's an interesting thing.
Well,
a
if it's
4 unit.
if it's 4 units, it has to be hardwired.
That's what I'm
anyway.
saying though. So it already
But
is.
even if it's 3, it would have to be hardwired, whether it's a B and B or not.
I'm trying to actually point out the counterpoint to our positions that we're thinking of. Safety. This house already is wired. This house already has smokes. So I think that I don't think this is really cut and dry.
Oh, it's not. It's not black and white. I mean,
Because I know that there are people who've invested large sums in trying to figure out a business opportunity for themselves. And we're going to directly impact that investment. And I think we need to rethink about all of when you're creating a policy, you have to clearly identify the problems you're trying to solve. Then you have to step back and figure out if you're creating any more problems with those solutions. And I'm thinking right now that there can be some potential problems in our solutions.
Oh, I'm sure there's gonna be wrinkles that we're not predicting at this point, yeah.
Well, and things that we know will happen. And we have to be comfortable with that because it's about balancing the situation. I mean, the Airbnbs can be tremendously good for the community in so many ways, as Harry mentioned, but oversaturation can lead to what they call communities of transients. And so we want to keep our community involved, and the way you do that is have them live in your community. We don't want more or less affordable options and higher rents. I mean, that's what you end up with if we get oversaturation of Airbnb. So where we strike that balance.
The less long-term rentals that are available, the higher the rents will go.
Absolutely. So any way we structure this is going to be, there's going to be opposition on one way or another. We have to do what we think is best for the community at large.
Right.
So I think that's what we're trying to struggle with here.
So yeah, that's so there's a lot to consider here. Anything else on this side?
I don't know. I find this whole thing. I think it's a positive attempt. I'm still concerned that the information we have, I guess there's no crystal ball. I'm gonna have to try to create something and then see how well it works.
Yeah, the revenue that we're seeing that we've generated, it's increased from 2021 to 21-22, but it's nothing that is a basis for a major decision. It's not like we're walking away from something. The revenue generated from those, the bed tax, the hotel tax is not what we're trying to capture here. The revenue comes from the people who are staying in those units that they're spending in town, and that's not really quantifiable. I could speak to it just from experience, but again, making that balance of what's safe and healthy and will move us forward in a predictable way is really the key here. What is it?
Is there anybody we can hear from?
Yeah, if the council is done with our discussion at this time, I'm gonna open it to the public, but I do have a correspondence that.
I just want to just add one thing that, I was speaking with the manager. Always remember, and I'm just reminding the fellow council members that we can revise this anytime we want. We're not finalizing anything this evening, but once we do put something in motion, we can come back and revisit it. We can tweak it. We can add things, we can eliminate things. But I think we've touched upon one of the biggest points is, are we going to put a cap on it? And then the other point that we really need to address is the parking.
Right.
We have to come up with something that is not only reasonable, but that's usable for the parking when these units do go into effect.
Yep, so actually, before we open to the public, let's discuss the parking issue
And
as well.
if I might add, we should talk about a little bit about fines and penalties associated with non-compliance on certain aspects, which is not within this ordinance as I see it, so.
Well, as far as parking and the requirement that there be a parking space per bed or per unit or for whatever, I think that putting overly restrictive parking requirements is kind of a false sense of comfort. I think it's helpful if a host has a parking plan for their guest that would say there is off-street parking at the unit, enough for 1 or 2 cars. Any amount that exceeds that, or any number of cars that exceed that, here is the plan for where you can park within the community. Either they have an agreement with another nearby property owner to park there, or they're directed to any of our free parking. But I think we're ignoring the fact that if they were all long-term rentals, those units would come with guaranteed cars at all times, which would be even more of an impact on our area, our limited number of parking spaces. So the short-term nature of it, there's no guarantee that a person coming into town, staying at a short-term rental is driving in. I said this the last time. They could be taking public transportation. They could be coming in via the bike path. They could be coming in on a boat, depending on the time of year, or they may be carpooling or taking an Uber or a Lyft or any of the other number of transportation services, RIPDA for heaven's sakes. So I don't think that the parking impact from short-term rentals is as serious an issue as we might make of it, but long-term rentals are more likely to come with definite parking impact, as well as just tourism in general, people coming into the community to go to our restaurants and our galleries and our shops and whatnot. They're driving in generally, or sometimes taking the bus or the bike path, whatever. But they're parking downtown. We see it every day when the restaurants open. The parking spaces fill up. So conflating that short-term rentals are going to be the end of downtown parking, I just think is false. So it would seem that what was it, like 80% of the short-term rentals have 80% of the listings include parking as an amenity. So we're not talking about, cars or no place to put
That
cars.
parking as an amenity, is that off-site parking, or they got spaces in front of their house?
I think for them to
Might be both.
clarify
Yeah.
as an amenity,
Because I find it very hard to believe that, because I know where most of those units are, there's not that much off-street parking. So they're probably counting, oh yeah, we got parking available, we got on-street parking.
but whatever the case may
Yeah.
be, if those units are not rented all the time, those are open spaces. I just don't think that parking that short-term rental parking problems are as big of a deal as some might make of them.
So just real quick, who's gonna, are we gonna treat this like any other business where they're coming before council to get their licensing? Is that our goal, or are we gonna have?
I didn't think so.
Now,
Somebody's gonna oversee it.
They have to register.
Yep, but who's gonna do the compliance check?
Well,
I believe that would fall on the building official in his department.
All right, so I'm with you on this, on Kerry, like, come in with a plan. And just like anything else, if the building official's office is going to be the gatekeeper for this, if the boxes are checked, they're good. If the boxes are not checked, meaning they need relief, a waiver, a variance, are they coming before us?
I would say yes,
Okay,
because it's not gonna be in.
the manager
zoning
has something.
ordinance. Yeah,
Actually, solicitor here just brought that up as an issue that if that is the intention of the council, you could create a waiver process and insert that language into this ordinance, similar to what you have in the municipal, the mobile food establishment ordinance. And that waiver request would come to the council. I think that's the process.
And this is where I was thinking this with the MFEs, how they were coming before us. We treat it the same way as the mobile food establishment, and if they need to come before us, then they come before us. Which I'm okay with, because we're the ones that are gonna get the phone calls and the complaints. So if we're the ones that are gonna get the phone calls and the complaints, then we should be the final word on whether this is a yay or nay.
so right now, there's a limitation on vehicles, or there's a stipulation on vehicles, so we have to decide what we.
yeah, what's written in the proposed ordinance, they need a parking space for each two persons of dwelling occupancy. So say if we're counting each bedroom that's occupiable for two people, if they got 3 bedrooms, they would have to provide 3 parking
3 spots.
spaces.
And if
And
they
that
can't,
might be excessive. in some
but
cases.
if they can't, then to come to us with a plan, what they're going to do to rectify that, and then we can make our decision. That would be no different than any other entity coming before us. Somebody that wants to do entertainment because they're having a graduation party in their neighborhood.
But rather than supplying a plan upon
Right,
application.
it could be worded something like. 1 parking space is required for each rental unit. If you cannot meet this requirement, you must apply for a waiver from the Warren Town Council. Present a parking plan and apply for a waiver to the Warren Town
Yeah.
Council, something like that.
Perfect, because maybe they're gonna go pick them up or something, but
yeah, I don't think it should be attached to, if you've got a rental unit that has 2 bedrooms, which could potentially mean 4 adults. It's highly unlikely that you're gonna have 2 cars. It's,
Well, you
Why
get
is
2
that
it
unlikely?
could be 2 separate families.
I'm gonna meet you there.
If it's 2 separate families, just if you got 2 units, doesn't mean one family is gonna rent both units.
yeah,
You can have
can-
somebody from Connecticut and somebody from New York.
per bedroom.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's appropriate to
Right.
attach.
That's why instead of per bedroom, it should be per
Per
unit.
unit.
per unit.
Yeah.
Yep, parking space per unit. Yep. And if you can't provide it, then come to us and we'll figure it out for you.
Okay, so it sounds like on the
Oh, no.
parking that we're leaning towards the 1 per unit. And if you can't meet that, you need to apply to the council for a
Give us a
waiver.
plan.
The other thing we're leaning towards is, well, actually, the other information we need is an accurate count of how many actual dwelling units we do have in case we want to go by the percentage amount.
What are we gonna use as a formula to, or not a formula, a definition in regards to what's an appropriate use or a waiver? Like, how do we justify?
They would have to present what their plan is to make their parking work without becoming a detriment or a hindrance to the neighborhood.
Yeah, and treat it on the merits of the application, that's all.
You can even use terminology such as hardship.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Must prove a hardship to the council for their
Yeah.
consideration.
just like any other application.
We can help draft our language to kind of set a standard that the council can use to analyze these waivers.
Okay, and the,
Mr. President, I think Chris
Yep.
said,
yep, I'm gonna call on, I'm just trying to make sure we
Okay.
don't, before I
Sorry.
call them, I want to make sure that they get our notes on the way we're feeling.
so as far as capping the number of units, I think 10% is a high number. I think other communities.
Yeah, but until we know the exact
Well,
number.
they would,
Yeah.
it's been discussion of like 2%.
Yeah.
2% is where
Uh,
that's still 110.
monitoring that is a handful. I think that's gonna be really trouble.
Well, by state law, they have to register with the state, so we will have that.
Yep.
as a starting point.
It's a moving target.
Yeah.
And with any of this, it's a moving target. I mean, I know that some communities actually hire monitors. You know, there's monitoring services such as host compliance and
If we go by that, I think it's gonna turn into the way the old liquor licenses used to be, where the liquor license actually gets value. Because before you couldn't, they weren't creating any liquor licenses, so if you bought a bar, even if it was run
Oh,
down,
yeah.
you were just buying it for the liquor license, and you were paying some ridiculous amount of money. I can actually see this traveling down that road if we limit it by a percentage, but that's, you know. In other words, say if it comes out, we only allow, say 100. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
the guy that's number 101 decides that he wants to buy the property that already has it, or wants to buy the right to it.
yes.
That's all some stuff we're gonna have to watch out for down the road.
I'm not so worried about somebody wanting to buy a property just to do short-term rental. I would be more concerned about an existing property owner, a homeowner who wanted to enter into the program to rent a bedroom in their own single unit.
That's the people I would support,
And-
not the people that don't live there.
Exactly. So once you get to the cap, maybe there be a provision. If we
Correct.
say that there's a cap of 100 units and then you meet the cap and then, you know, Ben here, who has an extra bedroom in his house and he wants to generate a little bit of income and he's got off-street parking, he can do that, but he would have to apply to get that waiver. So
Correct.
that would expand it, but for existing,
So there'd be,
I'm looking out for you.
Four kids is no action.
There'd be a college soon.
so there'd be an option to go over the cap.
There'd
Is
be
there-
an option for an existing, you know, if you had a private home, if you had a single unit dwelling, a
Yeah.
private home, and you wanted to rent a bedroom within that home, and you weren't, I think the cap prevents people from coming and buying properties to set them up as short-term rentals. Somebody who lives in the community, who has an extra bedroom in their house and wants to get in, wants to start renting it, shouldn't be prevented because of the cap.
Then go with owner occupied. You don't have to worry about it.
Right, I
We're
mean,
just-
you're talking about how to get around the cap.
Yeah,
Like, You're actually
you're talking about how to get
saying
rid of the cap.
In fact,
it's not a cap then.
Yeah,
it-
it's a suggestion.
Help me understand what you're calling.
we're trying to prevent people from coming in and just purchasing,
Yeah, it's speculating.
speculating and buying properties for the sole purpose of doing short-term rental.
Right, so that's
Correct.
already happened.
Yes. to
And
an
now
extent,
we're trying to figure out how to control.
how to control that.
Correct.
So if I may, when the council addressed the mobile establishments, the language that was put in is very broad in terms of what can be applied for a waiver. You basically put, if you can meet any of these restrictions, right, or requirements, you can come before the board. Yes, we already talked about parking, but maybe once that cap is met, that means now they'll have to come and maybe waive.
Then why put in a cap?
Correct, but at least it'll give you somewhat control of maybe
The
just.
cap has to stop.
The cap is gonna be 100%. When we get to cap, I don't care what you are. You're not going anymore until you're on the waiting list until one opens up. Otherwise, you know, the people the legitimate people that B and Bs were created for could get shut out, or we could just have an unlimited amount of them and the cap's only on the other people that.
But if you meet these requirements, you're legitimizing them anyway. So I don't know if the word legitimate, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because if you meet the requirement, you are legitimate.
Yeah, and this is probably a discussion for once we know how many
Right.
dwelling units we have, what percentage we want to go for, and seeing how seeing how it works.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from other people.
Yep, I'm gonna-
feeling like we're going on.
I'm going to read this letter that we received from Barry Hawkins that would like this read into the record. There's a little introduction in the front where he's talking about properties he may want to buy, and I don't want to put that out in the public. So I'm just going to go by his comments. Number one, it is an excellent first draft and attempts to address in a fair and balanced manner some of the issues that certainly need to be addressed for the benefit of the owners of properties being used as short-term rentals, the visitors who wish to use these properties, in the town of Warren and its residents. Good regulation of this growing and popular housing concept is needed by all three categories to address problems that may arise, and we strongly support an attempt to address any such problems in a fair and balanced manner. For the most part, this draft does that, and my comments are made in an effort to improve that effort. Okay, now he gets into paragraph 2A defines bedroom, which is a key term used throughout the ordinance, and it is vital that the definition be clear and easily understood. Unfortunately, simply referring the readers of the ordinance to the state building code, SBC 1, does not really work well. The state building code is published privately, and subscriptions to it are quite expensive. The state does mandate that a copy of the voluminous code be made available in each town in Rhode Island, since it is not available online. In Warren, the one copy is in the office of the building official, and one must go to that office during business hours and ask for assistance in navigating that resource. I found the office to be very, very helpful to me in locating the sections that define a bedroom, but it still took nearly 20 minutes of helpful assistance, and I am a very experienced land use attorney in a different state. It would be a great improvement to simply include all of the required elements of the definition within the text of the ordinance. Such a change would certainly be welcome for future use of the ordinance, not to mention the nice folks in the building official's office. Paragraph 12C requires a host to designate an individual who resides permanently in the town of Warren to be the host's representative for the receipt of service of any notification that needs to be made concerning violations of the ordinance by either the host or any guests. First, there is really no need for this designated person to be permanent, as long as the designation is for the term of the registration 1 year, or if the designated person is to be changed, that first a new designee be named and added to the existing registration so that the position is always filled during the term of any such registration by a host. More importantly, I question whether it is necessary or even good policy to require the designated representative to be a Warren resident, as opposed to other nearby towns in Rhode Island, which are within 15 to 30 minutes drive. For example, my Rhode Island attorney is in East Providence, and if I were registering a property in Warren as a host, I would want to use his office and phone number. I don't see any valid reason for excluding residents of nearby towns in this matter. With those modest changes, I would strongly support the ordinance as written. I will send you a separate communication dealing with proposed changes to be made to the draft by others that I have heard discussed, but will confine this letter simply to the changes that I think should be made to the existing draft and not comment on proposed changes. Okay.
Do we have 135 in Warren already?
135 units.
Yeah. I keep seeing this number 135 in the hotel report. What is that? I don't know. I'm not.
What page is that on, Bill?
We're on the first one. I'm not clear with the definitions. are.
That's on the DBR report page.
Correct. Like the first page says we're on 1%. And then we're at 135, then at 203. 1% what? Is that money?
That's dollars.
We're running $135.
That's,
Yeah, that's a 1 month collection, yeah.
Then it says hosting rooms, hosting platforms and rooms. So what's that mean? It's 135 again. Is that what they're taxing?
Yes,
so
so that's the amount of tax that's been.
Sorry, I don't have this on. That's the amount of tax that's collected over that time period. So like the second page you're looking at, that's June 2022. In June of 2022, $135 was collected in the town of Warren from hosting platforms and room resellers. So that was the total revenue for that month.
so we probably get about what? $1,500 a year.
Yeah, it's 1,200. I
Yeah.
think.
Well,
Yeah, it was 1294 was
Yeah,
what we
it's
collected in
not-
fiscal year.
it's doubled from 21 to 22. But I mean, the pandemic probably impacted a lot of things.
Okay, that being said, now I'm going to open it up to the public. If anyone would like to speak on what we discussed in this ordinance, please come forward, state your name, and tell us what you're thinking.
I think it'll help.
First,
Good evening. My name is Barry Hawkins. My wife Lillian Hawkins owns property in Warren, the 542 Main Street and 546 Main Street. You just read the letter that I wrote.
I didn't know you were going, I thought you were not going to be here. That's why I read it. I would have let you read it.
No, that's fine. I did want to explain a couple of things. One, I talked to Attorney DeSisto after the October meeting, and he suggested that it would be helpful if I would comment and make some suggestions on improving the ordinance, which is the origin of that letter. It talks only of what's in the ordinance, and the ordinance still maintains today. I asked for the latest copy of it. It's still the one that was presented in October. I wrote a separate letter. I think it's in the hands of the building officials. Perhaps the town administrator has a copy of it. I don't know if it made it to the city council or not, town council. But the second letter addressed things which were discussed tonight, which are not addressed in the letter that I wrote, which I think was very complimentary. My understanding of the process of drafting this ordinance was that the solicitor's office sent out requests for copies of ordinances dealing with short-term rentals in a number of neighboring properties in Rhode Island. And that they took and picked and chose some of the better or best policies that they found in these proposed policies. One of the things that's not in this ordinance as drafted is a requirement that there be a cap on the total number of units that are subjected to short-term rental. Another thing which is not in it is a requirement that an owner live in the building in order to be an Airbnb owner, that one would have to actually physically be a resident of Warren and live in that building in order to have a legitimate Airbnb. That's not in this ordinance. I presume from your discussion that you'd like to see, or some members of the council would like to see it be written in that manner. It wasn't written in that manner, I presume, because solicitor's office decided that the better policies were the ones that were reflected in its original draft. And so it's not there. Some members of the town council would obviously like to see it added to it. My letter, second letter to Attorney DeSisto, was a much longer letter explaining why that would be a bad policy, why it would be harmful and is not fair and balanced to the town, and why it would prevent a number of people who have legitimate ties to the town, who own property in the town, and is not necessarily corporations or LLCs trying to buy up 60 or 70 units and come into Warren and overwhelm the town with units. But people who have property which needs to be repurposed for a variety of different reasons, that they are not necessarily being utilized to their best ability today. If you talk about the number of parking problems that come from rental units, most apartments that are rented require a parking for both the husband and wife, or the husband and friend, whatever it is, the two people. I know that many zoning codes are written with 1.5 parking spaces per unit, but we all know that there's no such thing as a half a car. And what happens is that in most families, we have two or more drivers, two or more cars. And so rental units end up with far more cars putting a demand for parking than do short-term rentals. Short-term rentals really do provide quite a bit of relief in terms of the number of spaces that are needed. But this bugaboo about being able to park on the street, of being forced to park on the street and taking up street parking, is largely ignoring the fact that most of the sophisticated platforms that are available, like Evolve, there's another one, it starts with a V and I can't think of the name of it, but pardon?
Verbo.
Yeah.
VRBO.
Versasa, yeah, Verkasa.
Oh.
They require you to have parking on your site as part of their requirements for having you as part of their platform availability. So it's something that's actually going to put a number of people out of compliance in areas where there is no ability to actually park in the historic district, for example. The Water Street District has many units that are not eligible to be compliant with the rules imposed by some of these platforms. But if they are required to have parking on site, then they're probably out of business because they don't have the ability in many of those homes to have parking on site. We happen to be in a fortunate position where we have the ability to provide parking per unit. But your conversation tonight would basically say in a two-family house, we could only have one Airbnb, and that would mean that the other unit would end up imposing more of a parking problem because it would be a long-term rental. It also creates a really awkward situation. What do you do with condos? What do you do with buildings which basically someone owns the condo unit, and then maybe they own two condo units, and because it's a 10-story building or 12, the 6-story building, they can't have more than one Airbnb in that building because it's it already has one.
But we don't have that hypothetical problem.
You don't have the high rise.
36 feet.
You don't have the high rise problem, but you're going to have enormous difficulty trying to impose a fair and balanced rule that imposes a restriction on the number of units per building. That's going to be a very thorny issue for you, and it's being litigated in a number of places now. I'm not threatening litigation. I'm just saying it is going to be a very difficult problem. You don't have a problem that needs that solution yet. You are looking at dropping a nuclear bomb on a problem that does not exist today. You have the ability, as one of you have already mentioned, to change your regulations in the future as you see. If you perceive that that's becoming a problem, you can react to it and you can impose new regulations that meet those problems. But to come out at the beginning with a solution that basically puts a lot of people out of business or makes them unable to utilize their existing properties is both unnecessary, unfair, and unwise fiscal policy, because the Airbnb guests are very populating the historic district, the restaurants, and the town's stores. I'm really happy to see Main Street really coming back with restaurants, with stores opening, rather than the years of coming to Warren, visiting our family and seeing how many empty stores are populating Main Street. You are on the verge of doing something very successful. Don't kill it with taking steps that are unnecessary and not needed and unwise. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hawkins, I actually have a question for you. How would you address the safety issue? Every place you ever go where you're staying 1 or 2 nights, you have smoke detectors, you have exit signs, you have emergency lights, because you don't know that area, the transient residential. So even if it's a 2-family home and you rent out that one room, that person wakes up in the middle of the night in a panic, they don't know where to go. How would you address that situation?
Can't we make that a part of the?
Yeah, no, I
Say
think,
that they have to have
I think
detectors?
your very outstanding fire department, whose membership consists of a number of my wife's relatives over the years, they can deal with that problem quite handily. But the Airbnb community itself, again, I'm talking about the more responsible platforms that require compliance with their rules. For example, we are required to have smoke detectors. The fire marshal would make sure that we had smoke detectors. We also have emergency lighting, which goes on when you step onto to open the outer door and step out. The lights go on so that your illuminated path out. There is a requirement that we have a working fire extinguisher in the kitchen. There is a requirement. Somebody mentioned that these are nothing but bedrooms. Well, the requirements of Vacasa and Evolve are that they have to have kitchens, they have to have bathrooms, they have to have bedrooms, they have to have living space.
These are the
These are not
requirements.
just bedrooms.
These are the requirements on the platforms that you are soliciting people on.
Well, which we intend to, if we are allowed to register.
But the kitchens can be common, the bathrooms can be common.
Pardon?
The kitchens can be common. In other
They
words,
cannot become, they cannot, be not on Picasso and
I've stayed in B and Bs where you get one room with a lock and the kitchen is common. You got the little living room with the fireplace that's common. We didn't have our own kitchen. You just get that one room and then it's common. So it's not like, so in other words, you could have a 3-bedroom unit with one kitchen and you could actually have rent out 3 B and Bs. You could rent out each bedroom.
Sure, you may well be able to. It's not the platform that we've chosen.
Right, not you, but I mean, that's probably the most common platform. I've seen.
Actually, I don't believe it is, but
That's the most common platform I've seen. I haven't really seen one. I haven't stayed at an Airbnb yet where I had my own kitchen to myself. We had our own bathroom, but not my own kitchen.
yeah, and our requirement.
All right.
Our requirement does do that, but I think
Okay.
you're going to find that industry is changing a lot because there's going to be a real shakeout of less than fully evolved and fully realized Airbnbs, the ones that have the safety requirements met and have their separate kitchen, have their separate bathrooms. They'll be the ones that are successful in the long run.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. State your name and tell us your thoughts.
Hi, Paula Silva, 28 Linden Street. I apologize. I haven't been to some of these meetings and haven't followed this. So some of this may be redundant and maybe you've already answered some of this or addressed it. So Airbnb started in 2008 as during a housing crisis, and it was meant to help people pay for their mortgages that were losing their houses. And it was also part of the sharing economy. So you were sharing homes. And as you said, there is some sharing of kitchens, but that's not the majority that I know of on Airbnb. Most of them do have kitchenettes of some kind. In today's housing market, these are the same concerns. You know, people, this is a mom and pop. It was meant to be a mom and pop operation, not big business, which obviously it has developed into. My concern with this is that people buying, I'm a real estate agent, they're buying 3-family homes and they're turning them into all Airbnb units, and they're taking away housing. Whether it's affordable or not, even the rents could be high. That's questionable. But these rules that you're putting in seem to be very big brotherish to me. And for instance, asking the police department and the town clerks and the enforcement that's required for something like this seems really exorbitant. And asking guests to provide their address, vehicle ID, registration, color of car, make of car. I don't do that when I go to a hotel. Why do we have to do it?
You go to a hotel, you can put your license
You
plate
give-
down. When you
I
register.
don't think so. You don't have to give all that registration
What's
information.
your registration number?
You might give
Yeah.
you might give your license, but you don't give your registration
You
of your
give your
car.
plate number, so they can tell that you're supposed to be parking in that lot. But
So
That's
I guess
required.
one of my points is that we're doing all of this to impact what? To stop these people from buying 3-family units and turning them all into taking away housing. If that's the case, then why aren't we looking at this as a hotel, a boutique hotel? Why aren't we putting rules and ordinances in place to make them come before you to have this boutique hotel? What, because it doesn't really, the parking and all of that, most of them are apartments. And they're already required, as Carrie said, there's already parking that's assigned to those units. And it would be actually much worse if people were living there year round. So, I mean, it just seems like you're creating a big hornet's nest of things that are going to happen and we don't even know. And we don't know if it's right or wrong, when really you should be addressing that issue and having, these changing maybe how those are looked at as possible boutique hotels. And then of course, along with that comes the safety. There's already safety that the state requires when you have a two-family or even a single family, if you're building something new. So if we
Correct.
follow
Smoke
that,
detectors, and that's all,
Right.
not emergency lights and not exit signs.
no, but I don't see that as the big issue. People know how to get in and out. I mean, that's the responsibility of a homeowner to show show them the exits or let them know. The actual websites themselves, the platforms that require, as this gentleman said, that there is safety features put in place. And people look at that and determine, does this sound safe to me? And also we have insurance we have to have. So, I mean, it just seems really onerous, a lot of the stuff that you're putting in place. Someone brought up the issue of bedrooms. I live in a historic house. I have rooms that are considered bedrooms that are 80 square feet. I think the state law is 200 to require it to be a bedroom.
No.
I thought I read that somewhere. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
There are requirements. It's
Have to
not-
have a closet and a window.
Closet window, because you need 2 points of egress, but
It doesn't need to be 200 square feet, and the wording in it is not great. As a building official, you got a bed in it, it's a bedroom. That's the way I look at it.
Okay, let's stay focused. Let's
Okay.
try to.
Also,
Let's
so
not lose the fact we started early and now it's gonna go to midnight.
So the parking, getting back to the parking, I mean, I have guests that come and stay and they have family that come and visit and might stay overnight. What are we gonna do about those cars? That might be an out-of-state license plate. Are they gonna get issued a ticket? It's just, it just seems really over the top what's being done here to address an issue that you're really not addressing in the end. And that's the people who are purchasing these 3-unit buildings. And, and it's not Airbnb's fault necessarily. It's the market. It's doing what it is because of interest rates and because of a shortage of housing, period. It's not Airbnb. So that's it.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Home we own is a 1760 home. And we're doing a renovation on it, trying to get it up to code. And we're doing it because we want people to enjoy an older home in the town of Warren and be able to appreciate it. We don't live in the town, but I own 2 homes in the town. I've been in this town for 75 years. My family's been here over 100 years. And so I just want a home where people can come and appreciate it. They're getting an entire home. They're not getting a bedroom. They're getting 2 bedrooms, a living room, a room for using their computer if they want to. They're getting a kitchen, they're getting a yard. This is not the same thing as getting a 1 room. We're doing this because we want people to come to town and appreciate what is here and what they don't get anywhere else. And I don't think we should be penalized for doing something like that. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
We need to figure out 5 things that are like major.
Good evening, Spencer Morris, 18 Cole Street in Warren. Thank you for bringing all of this up. I realize that the state enabling legislation was brought on by issues that some other communities close to us have been dealing with. Middletown, Newport, were the prime motivators, I believe, at the state level to get some control over the development of the Airbnb. We call it Airbnb, but it's really short-term rental industry that, for the most part, I think has been, at least as I see it in the town of Warren, and personally speaking as somebody that does this, has been beneficial overall. And it should be, I think, unfortunately, there's sort of a negative pall that's come over this whole industry because of disruption, community disruption. And I'm not sure, I can't speak specifically that we're facing that here in Warren, but certainly to Middletown and Newport, irresponsible property owners not managing their community impact adequately have created this concern for us here, because obviously that's something we don't necessarily want. But I think overall, I would hope that we look at this industry from the economic development lens. As has been pointed out here this evening already, this industry has brought people into Warren who may never otherwise have thought to come here. And I can speak from our own experience that we get people from all over the world. Many of these people are coming because they'd like to find a place to live here in Warren. So they're not absolutely transient. And certainly during COVID, we had somebody stay with us for about 3 months, wound up buying a business here in town. So I think it's complex, let's just say. And in some respects, the 30-day bracket is maybe a little arbitrary. I don't know where else you can draw the line, but and it's 30 nights, which is another aspect of the ordinance that I think needs to be corrected. I think I have an early draft and it says 30 days, but it's actually the state's 30 nights. But 30 nights plus one, you're not in the, you don't fall under any of this. So we frequently have guests that stay for many months. It's an opportunity for them to have a short-term, if you will, commitment to kind of come to the community, learn about the community for various reasons, business, retirement, visiting family, things like that. I just would like to emphasize that we look at this from a positive perspective and try to understand ways to encourage this practice responsibly, and address the other issues that it brings to light, perhaps through other mechanisms. And I share with many folks here in the room, and as you've already spoke to this evening, the aspect of housing displacement. And clearly you hear this ringing in communities across the country, the kind of impact that these short-term rentals have on community housing. We're faced, currently, obviously, we had been in a housing market boom, driving rents really outstandingly high for long-term rent, as well as the opportunity for short-term. So housing is definitely a concern here. I don't know that regulating Airbnb is going to solve that problem. I think this is a bigger issue. I think it's an advantage to have people coming into our community, investing in our community, spending money with our local businesses. But again, housing is a broad issue that obviously we're not going to solve that through this regulation. But I think you need to be really cautious about over-regulating the Airbnb short-term rental industry. We have both short-term rentals and long-term rentals. And I will tell you that it's a lot easier to have a long-term rental. It's less management, less hassle. Not everybody's going to want to jump into this. So I think we've recognized here, you guys have recognized tonight, the outside investor, the corporate interests that are kind of turning this whole thing on its head. I really don't have an answer to how you stop that. Maybe you bracket it by the number of housing units, but you might also displace somebody who's, at the 2% plus one, they lived in the community for a long time, they're retiring, they want to do something different with their property and they no longer have that opportunity. So I don't know. I don't know that. So anyway, I'm taking up a fair amount of time here. I had a couple of issues that I thought about, and this wasn't really discussed too much tonight, but the enforcement and penalty section of, and I may have an older draft. It's not clear to me that the penalties for for noncompliance. Whether those would fall to the occupant or to the owner.
Goes to the owner.
The owner.
So ultimately, okay, so that's that would not be true for 30 nights plus one.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about short-term rentals. Just let's get to the meat and potatoes of this thing.
Right.
You want to know what the compliance issue is, it's gonna go back to the owners.
And
Period.
anything over 30 days, none of this would apply to.
Yeah,
So then so as the 30 nights, we somehow have, I mean, if they have it's a violation of the ordinance only, which could be the parking issue, could be
Noise.
the noise issue.
You know,
So,
destruction. We actually heard from someone who had a horror show next door.
Yeah.
Got accosted out in Twisted. Never thought that this.
so that would fall on the owner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, there were charges on them, I believe, through the police department as well, because there was damage, so this doesn't take away those
Yeah,
other
but
penalties.
That person probably got criminal charges, but the
Okay.
owner would have been fined and the owner would have been responsible.
In
for it.
regards to having this license or this opportunity to do the business, we're trying to figure out how to look at it as an
Sure,
incentive. Those who do it well are
Yeah.
incentivized to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Those who have, the penalty would be potentially 3
Yeah.
times you're a bad host.
Right.
Yeah, you lose your
Yeah.
registration or license.
It just was unclear to me that,
It's
I
still,
mean,
we're trying to figure this.
no, I
We're
appreciate
not trying
that.
to be overpowering.
Yeah.
We're not trying to do something that creates another problem.
It's just that would be a problem that, wouldn't, I mean, if there was a
Well,
okay.
that's why we were thinking
Yeah.
also of the absentee landlord,
Yeah.
if the owner were there, they'd have a more vested interest in making
Yeah.
sure that, you're not having a problem, because you're there.
A lot of these issues we have in this ordinance, if
Yeah.
it was owner occupied, we wouldn't even have to list them.
Yeah. Yeah, and somewhat these sites or these platforms have a self-regulating mechanism. Basically, everybody reviews everybody. You review your occupant, the occupant reviews you, and there's an incentive to behave. That's theoretically how it should work. And in our experience, it's worked pretty
But
well.
One of the interesting positive aspects of our relationship with Newport, Middletown,
Yeah.
the Aquidneck, East Bay Tourist Councils, we're getting a lot of people who are there who want to come and be here. So we're looking at this, not trying to necessarily be overbearing, but trying to
Yeah.
figure out the problems are happening there.
Yeah.
And we're next
We want to stop the problems before they
Sure.
happen instead of having to stop them.
to
While
maybe
they're going on.
continue positive success. I don't really, this whole thing is, starting to get tired of it right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep you much
No,
longer
not
here.
you. I mean, just.
I think the parking
I
issue
don't
has
feel
been
comfortable
spoken
with
to
any information.
pretty effectively. I would
Uh-huh.
agree with the testimony that speaks to the impact of parking in these various scenarios. And I think the idea that you have a petitioning opportunity, say, for instance, if you're in the historic district, clearly there's parking issues. I mean, it's not driven so much by the Airbnb so much as probably the restaurants and the success of our businesses. But we don't want to be tearing down our, historic properties to create more parking. So there needs to be some flexibility, I think, in that, depending on where in the town you're operating your short-term rental.
Well, we've created a mechanism to have people come and
apply
ask
for
for
a
waivers.
waiver.
So
Right.
I think that we've sort of addressed that.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
would try to identify that as an issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I say that I think what I have heard from other people in other communities that I know of about the short-term rental industry is that it's the housing displacement and trying to keep some cap on it. But how do you do that fairly? And again, mitigating outside interests, corporate interests, buying up large sections of the town, trying to turning into, sort of a Disneyland of some sort, where you don't really have full-time tenants, full-time owner occupants. We are owner occupants, so I don't, but we also have other property
Yes.
that we own, and we have generally more than 30-day occupancy, but not in every case. And we haven't had any complaints.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please come forward. Hello.
Hi.
That was my husband who just spoke. So he was talking about, I'm Allison Newsome, and my studio's on 74 Baker Street, 241, 74. I have two addresses. And I occupy the building as an artist, as a studio. It's mixed use. We also have an apartment there that my mother-in-law uses half the year, and then we Airbnb the rest of the year because she's here 6 months a year. I think maybe I like the idea of the host being in Warren. I've been to other communities, I travel a lot, and I see how whole neighborhoods have just gone Airbnb and they're all outside. They don't have any presence. Call me old fashioned, but when we started doing this, I get a lot of joy meeting my guests. I like that sense of I represent Warren and I live here. I like it that when my daughter comes here, her and her boyfriend can have an apartment because we live on one floor, one bathroom, one floor. It's very nice that I can have the option to sort of book it for a month for them and use it and then rent it out to outside. But it means a lot to me to have that, to be here, whether it's at my studio, which is mixed use, or at 18, our other units are full, yearly rentals or more, 5 long-term rentals, excuse me. And my kids are away now. It's nice. It's a sense of community. I don't chit chat with everybody, but I enjoy, it's sort of social a little bit for me. And I get a lot of joy out of being a hostess.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So it's not even a public hearing, it's just an ordinance.
I make a motion that we have heard everybody. We put some more work through the solicitor's office as well as the town manager, and I want to maybe even look at a reduction of all of these kind of things. We have too many things, I think. We're trying to figure out where fires are going to be before they even happen. I think we're trying to be a little bit, I wouldn't want to use the term big brother. I don't feel we are, but I do think that I'm starting to get the sense that we're trying to think about problems that haven't existed yet.
Well, and I'll be honest with you 100%. I don't like the idea of these taking off as roundabouts to be hotels.
I don't disagree.
That's why I'm a firm believer in owner occupied, and half of the junk we have in here in front of us goes away. And we have owner occupied means the agent is on the property because they own it. All of the complaints about noise, if the owner's there, they're gonna get complained, but that's the way I'm feeling. I think we should actually give them some direction on how we're feeling. So if they're gonna rewrite this, they can go the way that the majority of the council wants to go.
So help me with the language. I don't even want this to be the first reading.
Well, it already was, so we can keep it as first. We'll just continue it as
All
first
right,
reading.
so that's what I mean.
Motion to continue it.
I don't want to move this through to the second reading. I want it to come back and have maybe 2 or 3 of
So
different
we're looking for
options.
more wording on the parking.
Or even not. I mean, I think maybe even looking at the scenarios where I know their property specifically, I know their property specifically, they could rent spaces. Parking in town, they have that much. So when you look at these situations, I think we should maybe have things that aren't one size fits all for the town of Warren. It may have to be neighborhood based.
We've already reduced the parking requirement.
Correct.
In front of was, and they have an option to
And
come
they would-
before.
if
us,
they
and that's
can't
for
meet it, they
waivers.
come in front of
I think
us.
that's a pretty good option right there. I don't see the problem with this. I mean.
Problem is you're bringing people in here again, and I think in some situations you don't even have to.
What do you mean bringing people in
You
here?
know, like 500 people could potentially have to come in here and give us a plan, 500 places for these guys to look at.
I certainly don't want to see 500 B and Bs in the town.
Yeah, I think that's an
All right, well, that's
exaggeration.
10%, so let's say.
No, it's gonna
2%.
land at 2%, which
Right,
is
so
110.
200, I don't
It's
know.
100.
You know, I mean, I think it's just,
I feel like I want less is more.
I mean, we're attempting to solve some issues that, yes, haven't happened yet, but they're.
They have happened in other communities.
And they will happen. I mean,
Correct.
this is going to proliferate. And this is what we're trying to do, is strike a balance between allowing Airbnbs, which are great for the community. We get that message. We all hear it. We all understand it. But on the other hand, there's the other side of it, which is that it affects the community, the residential community, and you end up with just a transient community, and that's not what we want. So I think we're trying to strike a good balance here. And I'm comfortable with what we presented. The cap, well, maybe it's a little premature for a cap. As Steve, you said, we can come back to this, and we all know that. So maybe if we see the proliferation and we're getting uncomfortable with the number, we can come back and look at a cap. So maybe that's something that we take off the table.
If we get to a certain number and if we decide that the number is based on the number of dwellings and it's 2% of that, when we get to that number, then that would trigger another, a review.
To
of
see if
the-
it
of the
would be
ordinance.
increased,
I
yeah.
think that would be a time to look back and see what worked and what didn't work, and are we struggling with it? Is it working just fine? And, you know, sort of let it ride for a little bit longer. I personally would not support exclusively owner occupied. I like the idea of the owner being in the town of Warren. I think that that has some merit to it, but I think we're also looking at individual situations here where we have people with really strong ties to the community who are trying to contribute. I would submit that if you have, is it 4 units or 5 units in your buildings, that, you know, if we did go to a max 2 per building or not more than 50%, you might have 2 or 3 long-term rentals in your building, which would be very valuable to the community, because that is an issue that we're facing, is a lack of rental properties in the community, and made even better if you charged really fair prices for them and didn't go the market rate right now. If you could afford that, I'm just saying that as part of this conversation. I'm not suggesting you do that exactly, but you know, I don't think that exclusively owner occupied is reasonable. And I think it would exclude people who are already participating in the short-term rental market here in a really healthy and responsible way. So I wouldn't support that. But I like the idea of somebody being in the community and then having a local agent. I think it's funny that you put a lawyer as your local agent. They're not answering the phone on a Friday or a Saturday night.
Correct.
Are you? No, you're
Correct. Now. you
To
get-
go to that. It's like,
All right, so are we making any recommendations?
I think
other
they've
than-
heard what Steve's got.
If I could make a suggestion, please, to my fellow councilmen, and we really have gone beyond, you know, the call of duty on answering this, is that we make a motion to continue this to next month. I agree with Councilman DePasquale. Send any and all suggestions to the manager, because the manager is really the one that's drafting this ordinance with our assistance, and if need be, to loop in the solicitor's office if you think it's a legal question. And I've made no secret about this, that I do have short-term rentals in another state, and as the owner, I am held responsible for everything that goes on in that unit. So 100%, this has got to be owner held accountable. The owners need to have a stake in this. If they're not going to be held accountable and be responsible, then why are we doing this? And so that's just basically my suggestion.
All right, so you kind of, Kate, need a little more direction, or,
Well, I'd like to review what I've
okay,
taken as notes, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I think the things that seem are agreed to by consensus, we need to change the terminology 30 days to 30 nights. That's pretty simple. I think that goes by state law. Changing the parking to 1 space per unit. And then also creating a waiver provision. If anyone can't meet the provisions of the ordinance, that they would come to the council for a waiver. And then kind of the other things that are to be determined that I'm hearing are still not decided upon, whether the property would need to be owner occupied, whether there's going to be a cap on the total number of short-term rental units within the town and or a cap on the number of units per building. And then also the residence of the agent, whether that agent needs to be, well, I guess that would go along with the owner occupied.
Well, either that, does the registered agent need to be a Warren resident?
Right.
as well, yeah. And the other, so in other words, yeah, so in other words, if you give us a little flavor of, say, Kerry's idea of minimum of 50, maximum of 2 or 50%.
2 units per dwelling, no more than 50%.
Okay, yeah, give us a little bit of that wording, and actually, if you can just separate it out, we
Or
can look
max
through that.
Yeah, so you want to see some alternate language that
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
pick and choose from. kind
And
of.
an accurate number of how many rental units we do have, so if we do go the cap route, we know what percentage we're.
But if you have a 3-family, yep, I may not be great with math. If you have a 3-family, isn't 2 units more than 50%?
Yep.
Right.
Or How
Two
many-
units or
Said you
50.
can
I
have
think
2
you said you could
units.
have 2, but not more than.
but
in
not
other-
more than.
If you start getting into like 6, you can't have 6
No,
units,
but
you
I'm
can have
just trying to
3.
figure out if you have a triple decker and she said you can have 2 units and not more than 50%.
Yeah,
2
so
units?
that third unit becomes,
But that's already more than 50%. I'm not trying to be,
no, oh, okay, yes, you're right.
just doing the math, it's 2/3.
So the way that I had it in my brain was that if you have,
Whichever is,
it's kind of
Right.
whichever is
Right.
more than or.
right,
Yeah.
so.
All right, let's figure that out, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's
Did
not
you
right.
understand it before? Because now I can't.
Yeah, it sounds like if you have a 2-unit property, you'd be allowed to have 1. In all other, if greater than 2 units, you'd be allowed, if you have 3 or more units, you'd be allowed to have 2, right? If you have
No,
2 units,
more
you're
than
allowed to have 1.
50%.
Right, but it wouldn't really, it'd only be 50% if you have a 2,
Greater than 3,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Is that how
yeah.
I mean, I can send around draft language to make sure I'm understanding. My only question was, what about, so for a single family, that wouldn't be an issue. So single family would just be
Single family.
single family.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So,
That would be a true Airbnb.
so 1 unit would be allowed for a 2-family and then 2 units would be allowed for a 3-family or more, right? That's
They
how
can
you
have 4
intend it.
bedroom in a single family and have 4. This is like a Pandora's box,
I can put together some language, like you said,
please.
pick and choose, and then you can see what
Well,
feels right.
Yeah, it's complicated, but that's
Right,
why we have to
it's-
handle this. I mean,
We're
you
gonna,
know,
we're
it's
gonna
what
handle
we
it
have to
before
do.
it happens, and
We didn't discuss fines and penalties. I mean, can we,
can you come up with a fee schedule for fines?
yeah, so if.
Again, send them.
I would probably think that this type of situation would put a house in court and they have $500 per day as long as the violation goes on. And
Yeah.
in addition to all the actions that court can in terms of enforcement action, et cetera, that.
Yeah, and some wording in there where if you get 3 confirmed violations, you lose your registration or whatever, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, okay. Yeah, because, all right, I'll end it on this. We have a motion in a second.
Yeah.
I think the economic benefit is pale compared to the detriment that it's gonna cause in this town for the complaints, the violations, and the loss of the actual housing we have for our workforce. Again, if you want a hotel, buy a hotel. We have a motion in a second.
Yeah.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Moving on.
All right, where are we?
Probably
Goes on
going-
the agenda. Okay, public hearing. This is request for a designated disability parking space from Deborah Kraus. Is Ms. Kraus here? Please come forward. Hello.
Hi, how are you tonight?
We're good. How are you?
Tonight.
I'm well, thank you.
So give us a little quick synopsis of, you're looking for a handicap spot? Just a quick
Yes.
description of,
Okay, well, I live on Asselin Street where there's only parking on one side of the street.
okay,
And I do have a handicap placard for my car.
when I go to the store or whatever. And the problem began when I moved there and I tried to go into my driveway and it hit the curb cut is so high. And this was, the town did this. It was so high that it hit the underside of my car. And even when I tried to like go sideways, it still kept hitting. And it ended up costing me $1,600 to get it fixed. So I will not park in the driveway anymore. I have to park on the street. And because there's only parking on one side of the street, there's limited spaces. And many times other people are parking right in front of my house, including people that don't even live there. Twice in the very recent past, one person left their van there for like 4 or 5 days before he had it towed away. This was only maybe, I don't know, 5 weeks ago. A man went camping with my upstairs neighbors. He left his huge truck right in front of my house. There's actually 2 spaces. If you park correctly, you can fit 2 cars in front of my house. Well, he parked right smack dab in the middle, took both of them. So, you know, where am I supposed to park now? Because so many of the other parking spaces are taken and I can't park in the driveway. So that's why, because of the fact that between my knee, my ankle, my back, my neck, I am disabled. And so I am asking to have, I think what you do is paint the curb yellow or something.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mhm.
If the curb was
Fixed.
fixed and rectified, would you be able to park in your driveway?
And I would love that. I'd love to have my car off the
So
street.
I don't want to take any wind out of your sails or anything, but like if we get the DPW
Yeah.
to come down there and fix that, would that be better?
Yes, it absolutely. I actually measured the curb and it's a full inch higher than
Okay,
standard.
actually, well, I mean, even if we do give this, it won't be specifically for you. Anybody with a placard can
Could
park
use
there.
that spot.
We can't make it specific to you. So if anybody else has a placard and they're parked in that space, they have just as much right to it as you. We can't make it just your space. We don't have that authority. Correct.
But that's by state law with the handicap plaque.
Correct. So we
Well,
wouldn't,
then it would be much better if you
Let's do the
fix
curbing.
the curbs.
Well, we'll take a look at it. We can't promise anything.
yeah, can we direct the
We can put
manager
it-
to ask
look
the DPW director to look at it? So, you know, look at the situation and see if there is a remedy to get her back into her driveway. If not, we can continue
go
this
plan B.
application for
Yeah.
next month.
Yeah, do you mind giving us a month?
Give us a chance to
No,
look at it
that'd
and
be
see if we
fine.
can fix it.
Yeah, great.
Can we have a
Thank you.
motion for that?
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion and a second to continue this to next month and ask the DPW director to look at the situation and see if there is a remedy.
Yeah. we'll take it. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Yep. Moving on.
Okay.
Oh, what's?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Question on the same situation.
Okay.
My name is Eduardo Ferreira. I own 50 Naslin directly across from her.
Okay.
I bought new vehicles, a motorcycle and a car about 2 years ago. I have the same problem, but my problem, I do go on a 45. I'm on the opposite side of the road, so I can do it. But for the same situation, people are parking on my side of the street, and now I can't come in an angle, so I'm losing my parking spot. They took down 2 trees in front of the house, and I, back then, 8-10 years ago, I asked to put a sign back up that had no parking, and right to this day, it's still not there. I went down just last week, asked again about it when I found out about this. I seen the department work go by, literally drove 3/4 of the road, up the road before they actually stopped, looked back and found a sign that said no parking. So literally 3/4 of the road does not have a no parking on
Okay,
this
we can
side.
have, we can have him look into that at the same time he's out.
Like on my side and directly in front of my house, the sidewalk, I actually have a picture of it. Either the sidewalk sunk or the curb came up 2 inches difference between the sidewalk and the curb.
Okay.
That people tripped on it already many times. I've called many times about
All right,
that
he
also.
will- We will have that looked at all at the same time on.
Yeah, because there's definitely a problem, like I said, as far as the grade, as long as nobody parks on my street, I can still get into my driveway.
Okay.
If they stop parking there, it's creating a problem on my side also.
Thank you for bringing
Yep,
it.
Thank
forward.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at P2 now, request for a transfer of a holiday license from 114 Express to American Dream of Warren, 943 Main Street. Is the applicant here? Please come forward.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. So you're looking to transfer your holiday license?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is what used to be Andy Shell, 943? Okay,
Gas
yep.
station.
All right, so this is just a simple transfer, looks good, everything's approved, but we need to, make sure that the other i's are dotted and t's are crossed, so I would say, can we have a motion to approve? Does anybody have any questions first?
I mean, is somebody going to be running the business again?
It will be me.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So is
So
that?
I had the licenses from the state and I'm just ready to go. Excuse my voice. I'm leasing from the current landlord.
Yeah, they had some tragedy.
Yeah, I heard that.
So you're leasing, so
Yeah.
why is
Motion
this
to-
just a holiday license?
Yeah, that's a good
I was just kind of curious about, is there a business license? Or is that through the state?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so this is, because my next question is, why is a gas station and a convenience store a holiday license?
So they can be open 7 days a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
holiday.
So it's the technicalities of the
Yeah.
definition.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, but to wait till the clerk has all the information. to
Contingent on
issue.
all approvals with the
Okay.
departments.
No
So
problem.
moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Good luck. Thank you.
P3, request for a Class F beverage license from Chris Matos for the George Hale Library. Is Mr. Matos?
Oh, he's coming.
Oh, Chris. Is Ms. Matos here? Excuse me.
You want to come up?
So we're looking to have a speakeasy fundraiser. Wow, just give us a quick description of what you're looking to do.
It'll be February 8th. On Saturday night, the library will be closed to the public. We'll be selling tickets. We have already spoke to Chief Souza about how many tickets we can have based on how big the building is. So we'll have 75 tickets available. And we're gonna have beer and wine, music, games. What else? Food. This is Teresa Bosch. She's the head of the Friends.
I'm the Friends coordinator.
All right. Great.
Any other questions?
So,
Motion to approve?
so serving alcohol, tips approved, people involved. Okay.
Yes,
that's
we're
just-
working on it.
Teresa's getting.
Okay, that's
Three of us will be getting, be able to
Getting
serve.
your certification?
Yes.
There you go. Good for you.
perfect.
Then I could also work as a bouncer.
There you go.
All right, second. Steven, you had a motion?
I did a motion to
Motion
approve.
to approve. We want to put the same wording pending.
Pending,
Yeah.
Motion to approve pending issuance with all requirements of the clerk being satisfied. All in
like
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Is it a Saturday?
Okay, we have some correspondence. There's 3 in here that I don't really want to pull. I just want to ask that 3 letters we already covered Bruce, a letter for him, for thanking him for his service.
And Miss Valino
And
and Miss
Luca.
Gonzalez.
Yep, okay. Did we get that? Okay.
She got it. Yep.
Thank you. Next, we have new business, discussion and action regarding determining the property line and ownership of the parking area at 39 Long Lane. This was brought up by Councilman Di Pasquale. Joe?
Yes. Hi, good evening. The current owners. Excuse me, everyone. The current owner is here. Camille, if you'd like to come down, please. Because I think it'll be helpful to hear from you firsthand. All of us are probably familiar with the location, 39 Long Lane. It's right before the bike path. And she is operating a farm. And there is a farm stand that sells vegetables, which is her right by law and state law. So when the bike path has become popularized and now they're there, people, and I'm there all the time, and people are using the parking to go on the bike path. And there are people that are even parking on the grass that are on her property. So one of the questions is, who owns the parking spaces? And secondly, if they're the towns, then how is she? So basically it's ownership, I think, is the number one request. Number two is, what do we do in regards to signage and the legalities that are around the ownership aspect? And the second thing is, the property hasn't changed in the physical. So I remember there was, I think, Ms. Nisha, you thought that the parking spaces had been expanded. And they haven't. And she can attest to that as well. I just wanted to make sure before I stated it, but it hasn't changed at all.
Joe, can you show us on here where we're talking about? Is it?
So these are the greenhouses. This little area right here is the parking, and this is her
little.
that's the
Okay.
stand.
Go ahead.
So the stand,
Anybody out
so
there
you
looking?
can see, you want to see what we're looking at.
Oh, yep, I can see
Okay.
that.
And this parking was improved when we did Long Lane. I think the former DPW director just paved it and made the road nicer. There's no cut there. If you look at it, it's kind of really, it was, I shouldn't say that. I can't tell who did it. She's the previous owner may have, but it was timed at the same time that we repaved Long Lane. That was 15 years ago, probably. So this isn't a new situation. What is new is the owner, as well as the use of the stand. The stand was not used for years, and Mr. Souza, our fire chief, can attest to this. He drives by it every day. So the parking issues on some days, there can be 5 or 6 cars parked there that aren't even going to the veggie stand. So I'd like to hear what maybe the solicitors recommend and the manager. And did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you.
So preliminarily, I would maybe suggest that the council refer to our office, to Kate, and also the DPW to figure out a couple of things. A, who's the true owner of this property? B is figure out who paid this. And the last thing is to find out what the liability of the town is, to be able to respond with that type of information back to the council.
Okay, all right.
They're good.
If I could just add to that too, I talked to Chief Souza and I have discussed this in the past, before this came to the council, about potentially looking to see if there's room on the town property to create some designated spaces for the bike path. So if we were able to go forward and survey the front property line of this parcel, and we could also survey the front property line of the bike path parcel, so that we can see exactly how much width we have there and if there's the opportunity to create some
Should you
additional
make a
space.
motion for you to survey it?
I think that's what I would recommend, because without a survey,
Actual delineation.
right, I think we need an actual survey to know where those property lines
The
are.
line on the actual dirt to know where it is. You can
And
survey.
potential, we want to have maybe, town parking for people who go there. Right now, it's kind of it is.
Yeah, and I'll say, where the property came with the farm access road, so that's how we get deliveries. And that's right next to the bike path right now, so I think what's happened is people feel like they don't want to park in the parking lot because they think it belongs to the farm stand. So they're starting to park right on the grass and in front of that road. And I'm not even sure, is it our grass? Is it the town's grass? So yeah, we have to put in, a fence and a lot of things. So I would say, yeah, surveying it so we can all be
So
clear.
we need some clarification.
Yeah.
there for Sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like. Yeah.
Especially with the bike path being extended.
Yeah, I was gonna say, once the bike path extension, the broken bridge is finished,
Gonna be
that's
a
gonna
lot more
put
traffic
more
going through.
people on that, and whether they park down below more by the middle school or by the elementary school, or whether they want to hop on there, it is gonna just create more traffic.
All right, so a motion to send it to the solicitor's office as well as a audit or
Survey.
survey to
recommend,
determine
To get a survey.
the property lines.
Yeah, so we know what we have for measurements, if we can put parking there or what. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I wish I could have said show up at 8:15. but
It's all good. Thank you so much.
Pretty good. So-
I don't, this is 6.
Oh, geez. Okay, next we have discussion and action on possible litigation against the makers of flushable wipes.
Yes.
This is brought by Joe.
So again, took me a while to come up with this and a few months back, we had a problem down at the North End pumping station that still hasn't become the ownership of the American Tourister yet. And the problem was the flushable wipes, right? Partly, if not all of it. Years ago, we had that problem at the sewer treatment facility as well. I know that other communities are having a problem with it. And then it kind of dawned on me that I'm looking at the package and they're telling you to flush these things. So I feel the responsibility is on the manufacturers and the injured parties, the town, in regards to the expenses that we've incurred. So I want similar to the parking, I want to send it off to the solicitor's office. I can't imagine that we're the only ones that have had this problem.
We discussed this with Anthony at the department head meeting, and he asked Kate, he said he didn't realize we actually had direct costs associated with these
Oh, yeah.
things, and Kate said he did, so I would say refer it to the solicitor's office with the, in combination with the town manager to find out, A, the feasibility of it, and see if, we actually have standing
And there may be already open litigation. A lot of times when I think of something first, I'm actually not the first one thinking of it. So, that's another,
Okay, we have,
ask to find out if there's any, litigation going on. And,
So you're trying to flush it out. essentially.
trying to flush it out. We don't flush diapers down and they're flushable. They'll fit down the toilet. So the definition of flushable, to me is, I mean, they don't break down. And
To
they're,
start punning.
yeah.
all right, so we have a motion to,
Second.
to push the flush onto the solicitor's office.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the finance director. Fung.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are we looking?
Fabulous.
Can we keep the lights on for another month?
For another night, yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any questions from the council?
No, good work.
No, great job as always.
Congratulations on getting the audit in time, you mentioned to me. So I know you
December 31st.
put a lot of work into it.
Questions?
Right? You have any questions for us? You need anything from us?
I'll present that in the budget.
Good answer.
All right.
No,
No, we're good.
We're good. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very
It
much.
all adds up.
Next, we have the fire chief, a discussion and action authorizing the town council president to sign an agreement with Gerard and Associates to provide a EMS services, trip sheet and audit program. Chief?
Okay, one of the requirements of the Department of Health in order for us to have a licensed ambulance service is to have a process of a quality assurance, quality improvement of our EMS service. Our current structure makes it difficult to maintain the quantity or quality of that to be done. So we're gonna bring this to an outside firm to review and bring back to us our shortfalls or our highlights of our EMS service.
So this isn't a yearly thing, this is a one-time.
1-year contract is all I'm looking for, to give it a try and see if it
Alright.
does work for our structure.
And the goal is to understand the efficiencies of the
Correct.
process and.
The EMT, the whole process, inspection process, everything that they take on. We're looking to do 50% of our calls, not 100%. That's what we, to keep the price down. We just try and first year with 50% and see how it goes.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the police chief. Discussion and action regarding sub-grant award for safety for body worn cameras. Chief?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, thank you.
You got it covered.
We got it all done. I'm sure all of you are aware about the body worn cameras that we've been on the news a lot. We did get our grant from the states. We got a quote from Axon, which is a company that we would like to purchase or lease the body worn cameras from. So we just need permission to go forward and sign both of them before they go up.
So these are two separate agreements?
Yes,
One and two?
yes, one from Axon, which is actually the cameras, the equipment, the
Okay.
redaction, everything that comes with it. And then the one from the grant is from the state, which will provide us money to pay Axon.
So for number one, should we be voting to accept the grant? I'm a little confused what we're voting on item one.
So yes, it would be to accept the grant and sign the grant agreement,
Okay, yep.
sub-grant.
So chief, this is a mandatory, the body cameras, right? It's a mandatory program that we have to be involved in.
It's not mandatory. There's only one department in the state
Okay.
that didn't
Price.
get the cameras, but everybody else got it, so.
Okay,
Chief, I couldn't find the total of the grant. How much was the grant award?
39,455.
39,455.
All right, thank you.
Everybody get one? I have 20.
You have 20.
Okay, so we are looking for a motion
Motion to
to accept the grant.
Yep.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And now we kind of discussed it already, but we're looking for action to actually purchase the equipment through the Rhode Island Master Price Agreement. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. That's it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, from the town clerk, we have the list of the meetings for next year. They look okay to me. Does anybody see anything that makes them concerned or figure out if we should move it or not?
is
They
it
look like,
Valentine's Day? February 14th?
yes, it is.
Okay, just checking.
I'll be here.
I gotta get my excuse ready.
All right. Anybody got a question with the date, with the dates here?
No.
Can we have a
Motion
motion?
to approve the dates. as
Motion to
presented.
approve the 2023 council meeting schedule?
So moved.
Second.
Motion in a second. All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Okay, that being said, we need one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion in a second. All in favor? Aye.